another DJ DNA production.
Okay, people, this is Nickerson Performance located in Bristol, PA. Now, this place actually, quick history lesson, used to be the old 143s, which is the Bristol Rescue Squad. This used to be their building years ago. Not only does this man have a dyno, but he specializes in carburetors that will put you in the winner's circle till this day. If you watch Stay Tuned, Tony Angelo's channel, he actually did the carburetor for the NASCAR motor he bought for about 5 figures. So goal is get the Kodiak strap down and get you guys some data. What's up, y'all, man? It's been like a month. I've been away for a while. It's been a lot going on, but here we are getting right back into it. So my name's Rob Cole, and this is RCS Auto World, where we are doing stuff on the budget, on the low buck, not super down and dirty, but dirty enough. So without further ado, we finally got a chance to take a trip to the dyno. Now, these results I've been trying to get for a long time because this is kind of holding stuff up when it comes to putting on the marine intake. Now, I kind of went a whole extra direction, so that marine intake is going to come with some aluminum heads, and it's probably going to come with a whole new cam, and that cam is probably going to be a LS firing order. Explaining the LS firing order, that'll be a whole nother video that I'll explain that later. But the point is to get a solid baseline with what I got. So for those that have been following the channel, you know that I have been doing whatever bolt-ons that I possibly can, doing the suspension and working my way from the back of the truck all the way to the front. Now, mind you, this is not just for OBSs. This is for anybody that has a Vortec or small block Chevy in general. These are things that you can get results from regardless. So the last video that actually kind of ties into this one somewhat is the prep for the dyno. So if you've seen that last one, what I had to do was put in a 2-piece drive shaft because my 1-piece was acting weird after I lowered the rear another 2 inches. I can't blame the drive shaft, not the drive shaft's fault. I'm the one that changed the geometry when I decided to drop the rear another 2 inches after already setting it up. So put in a 2-piece drive shaft, got on the freeway, threw it in 3rd gear, and let it eat. Come on. Come on. I'm Gucci. Because I knew that the way the dyno works, regardless, I would probably most likely, which I had to do, be in 3rd gear. Because that 3rd gear gives you a 1-to-1 ratio. So therefore, for every engine spin, you get a drive shaft spin. So that's why they do it in 3rd gear. So moving on, the results were kind of, I want to say, bittersweet because I had 2 different PCMs with me, 0411 obviously, 2 different PCMs, and the second one didn't turn out the way I hoped it would, but I kind of got to get some more data on that one. Now, mind you, before I even get into the power numbers and whatnot, these Vortecs are rated about 260 horsepower from the factory, and that's at the flywheel. So you would expect to go through the engine, through the converter, through the transmission, through the drive shaft, through the rear diff, and then eventually to the tires. You're gonna lose a significant amount of power. I'd probably say, I wouldn't be surprised if it was about 60 horsepower, leaving you probably with maybe 200 at the wheels. And once again, that's brand new from the factory. So I'm going to move on, get to show you guys this data. And I mean, I have actually quite a few sheets of data. And it kind of helps out because when you can get to look at an actual graph, it'll kind of tell you probably where you want to set your shift points, because that can really be a game changer. But all right, that's enough talk. Let's get to it. So ignore the video clip you're seeing here because this is a bit of a fast forward, but one thing I needed to do is to add another O2 sensor bung for another AFR gauge. Yes, I do have my own AFR gauge on here on the driver's side exhaust, but if I plan on continuously coming to the dyno over and over to get more data, I definitely want to have a port that is not being taken up by anything, so you can just pop an AFR in and get the data on the dyno. So definitely one of the things that got to get done before I go over and make this trip. All right, for starters, we're on the, what is this? This is the passenger side. We're on the passenger side, my botched exhaust. Everything's tight, so that way I wanted to make sure I didn't have any leaks so they could have accurate reading. Even though I already have an AFR gauge installed on the driver's side, I guess they want the peace of mind to use their equipment so that way they can get a true to life reading with their machinery or computers, whatever they use. All right, so here goes the driver's side, and that is my AFR on this side where I get my reading from the gauge that's on my A pillar. So just repeated the same thing on this side. I would have liked it to be as close as that one is. This one is a little further back. Now here we go back to the passenger side. This one is a little further back because if I wanted to do it how I did the other side, this one is a lot closer to the cross member than, so it kind of wouldn't allow me to do it right where it is, because I would have need to have had it in the section of pipe that's right here. Problem is, with me doing that, I would have gave myself limited space because I probably would have hit the cross member somewhere around here, or I could have angled it down some, but whatever. And one of the main things with these sensors is that they don't want you to have it like at a straight up like 90 degree coming straight out the side. They want you to have at least 10 degrees up from that 90 degree. And this is definitely more than 10 degree, but I just wanted to make sure I had a healthy angle on it, and it was in a decent spot. And they should be okay with this because it's not too far. I want to say maybe, I don't know, 8 inches, maybe 10, something like that. 10 might be pushing it, but 8 is within range. All right, so my fault for being extra, but I'm like about to cry because I have not spent $100 to fill up a tank since my Suburban. And that's exactly what it just took to fill up. So I'm at the Sunoco, and I wanted to make sure because once again, this tune is for 91 octane, so I don't need 93, but just to let it flow through me and my extra self, I got to fill it up with 93. So yeah, $100 keys. Not sure where they want me to park at. They probably want me to come in front of the bay, but for now I'm gonna just go and pull out of the way and see where they want me to go, which bay it is. Yep, today's the day. All right, they told me to pull around back, so I'm guessing probably to get on a dyno. It's either that door or it's over here. We'll see. Okay, y'all, so we're here. We made it over here in Nickerson Performance. ready to get the Kodiak on the dyno and let's see what it does. Now, my hopes are not high whatsoever. I'm definitely thinking that the numbers are gonna be low. I was guessing probably around, I don't know, I'd be lucky if I had 200 at the wheels, you know, high 100. That's what I was thinking, but I guess that's just me being optimistic. Oh, I'm sorry, pessimistic. But yeah, so I've been here harassing these guys for like, I don't know, 3 times probably. And each time I came by, just making sure I had everything lined up the way that they wanted it, had a O2 port access and everything else just to make sure it went smooth when I did get here. So yeah, super cool. Didn't get any crappy vibes from him. The guy was like intimidating. I don't know why I was like intimidated by him, but he's super cool. Talked to me, and yeah, this is probably gonna be my spot to try to get all of the data that I do get every time I do make mods. But all right, I'm gonna call him on the phone or knock on the door, one or the other, so that way we can get inside, figure out where he wants me to go, and strap it down. Okay, so before the first run, Dean actually took the time out, which I super appreciate, to actually explain to me how it goes. He also asked how is it that I drive on the street, usually when I mash on it, and so on and so forth. Long story short, he explained to me what he thought was the most efficient way to gather data. And that is when he explained from the first gear, rev up, go to second gear, rev up, third gear, rev up until he gives me the signal, and then floor it. And then from that point, you tell him, hey, I want to run it up to 5,000 RPMs or I don't know, 6,000 RPMs. And then he'll let you know when to cut it, because that means you reach your RPM range. So just learning to follow his commands was step 1, since I've never been to a dyno before. So I'm here in first gear now. He's giving the signal, telling me to rev it up. And then he's going to throw up the number 2, let me know, throw in a second gear, rev up some more. And then he's going to tell me to go in 3, rev up some more. There it is, 3. And then after that, he's going to sweep his hand, telling me to floor it. Now, if you go back a few seconds, you can see when he first swept his hands, telling me to floor it, and then he swept his hand again because he didn't think I was flooring it. I mean, this man deals with fast cars on a regular basis, so I wasn't surprised that he was just like, hey, is this guy flooring it? But I absolutely was. Now, here's the first run that I actually screwed up. I'm not going to show you guys like, oh yeah, I just a pro off the bat. No, not at all. So this is the first run that I botched. Now, again, this is my first time learning his commands. He's telling me to rev up. Now, this one would kind of mess it up. Well, not what did mess it up is I went in the third gear, but during my testing, when you saw me before on the freeway, when I was in third, it didn't jump back to second to go into third. So here, me being nervous, it actually did drop back out of third, even though I was mainly out of third, to go to second. And then it eventually threw me into third. But in my mind, I hit fourth gear. So I let out of it early around like maybe 4,000 RPM, something like that, a little over 4. And yeah. So now this is me sticking my head out of the window trying to explain to Dean where my mind was at. And he corrected me and basically said, no, you jumped to third gear. So I was in third gear at the time that I was really pulling. And if I'd have known that, I'd have went through for the whole thing. But even with me stopping, the numbers as far as power goes, I was at 239.9, I guess let's just say 240 horsepower at the wheels. And as far as torque goes, I was at 360 torque at the wheels. Now, my expectations are blown out of the water because I'm expecting 200 from the factory at the wheels, brand new. But here I am, over 200,000 miles, so high mileage, and at the tires, I'm seeing 240. Wow. Okay, so here's the second pull. Now, the second pull was the best pull because that's the one where I got the best results. So with these results, I probably could have got a little better if I actually wasn't punking out. So I decided to go only to 5 grain. That's where I pretty much decided, you know what, I'm gonna just go up to where it starts the red line, and that's pretty much it. That should be enough to get a baseline. I do kind of regret it after the fact, only because when I looked at the graph, the motor was still pulling. The only reason that it started to dive off is because I let off the gas. But yeah, so just check out this pull.
First gear.
Like I said, second pass, best pass. This pass going up to 5,000 RPM at the wheels was 252.9 horsepower. Torque went down a little bit, which is kind of expected, to 317.2 foot-pounds of torque. But guys, we're at 260. We're at flywheel horsepower from the factory at the wheels on a 200,000 plus mile engine. That's amazing. You got to start somewhere and get you a baseline and just work your way up from there. Now, again, this is just literally headers, dual exhaust, a cold air intake, and truthfully, I want to say that's it. The only other thing that could possibly be playing a factor is the fact that there is an 0411 PCM in here with what they would call a factory tune. Now, this is the tune from Lextech. He says that he is not a tuner, but his factory tune that he mails you to run it, it does a great job. Other tuners have looked at his fuel curves and said, wow, those are really smooth. That looks like something that I would do. So, yeah, it's definitely getting the job done. Okay, so moving on to the part that wasn't so great, that bitter part that I talked about in the beginning. And that was the other PCM that I had. So the other PCM that I had, I actually sent out, which I probably could have thought of a better way to do this, but I also sent that one out to Lextech so that way he can upload the express van file that he uses when he does give people a baseline mail order tune to run their truck for an 0411 swap. That's what was originally on there. Then that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to talk to Brian Herder, a guy I haven't heard from in a long time. Used to come down to Philly all the time to do bulk tunes where people with LT1s, 0411 swap trucks, whatever the case may be, pretty much anything GM, all you had to do was show up and there was always a group of like 20 or more cars. And for like $100, he would do a tune depending on whatever bolt-on modifications you had, or even camshafts. So Brian Herder got back to me and we talked about it. I let him know what I had going on. He said that he could do it, and he was actually getting ready to leave and retire from the company that he pretty much helped to build. So it was pretty cool for me because I literally have the last Brian Herder tune. Now the part that sucked for me is after we had discussed everything and I put it in and I did the last run, long story short, Dean had cut the run down, probably I want to say maybe like midway.
power number here was all right. We were at 242 at 4,400. But you see up here where, see the air fuel, we're 13.6, 7. I'm like, come on down, and it's not coming down until we lift it here. So let's overlay them. So fucked up. I'm so bad with names. I had to look over there and for Smith.
I'm horrible with names, and
like,
Smith is hard to find because there's a billion of them.
It's like, dude, we're working here. You know, it's like, I am so bad with fucking names. It's unbelievable. Okay. Now, air-fuel ratio is, this is the run we just did. This is the previous run of the old ECU. See, we're down here in into the 12.9 full rate range, and it continued all the way through here. The very last run, we're up here, and then if you look here, a horsepower number, there's 2 in here. We have the red, which is the one we just did. And can you see the maroon one under here? This maroon is under here. So the maroon one underneath, when the original hit, it looks like this one was a cunnier, better. And then it's the same. And then the maroon is, see, the maroon's on top. So it was, I believe it was looking for more fuel on top. Usually on a power run like, we'd have to have more data. In other words, we'd have to look in and see, you know, you can't hear pinging and knocking. The motor can feel it, you can't hear it. So we would see it, one, if the engine knocked, that's why he told you to put 93, 91 octane. If the motor knocked, it'll pull timing out. Well, I can't tell whether it knocked. I can't see that it knocked. I just know that I'm concerned, and bucket, they ain't mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I don't say that. It's like it's my own piece. I don't want to hurt anybody's stuff.
Yeah.
So that, the fact that it was up in the 13s under hard load at 4,400, I think the motherfucker's lean.
Reason he shut me down is because him looking at the AFR, he wanted to make sure that under full load, I still had a decent reading on the AFR. So far, I've been averaging around about 12.8 under full load, possibly even around 12.5, something like that. But either way, around that was my average under full load during these pulls. So with this new tune, the issue was, for whatever reason, under full load, even getting higher up in the RPMs, it didn't drop to where he felt as though it needed to be to remain safe. The lowest that this tune went was actually about 13.8 as far as the AFR goes. That could be because maybe in communication when I was talking to Brian Herder, there's a possibility I did mention to him about the marine intake that I was actually going to be installing soon. I get the feeling there's a possibility, since the marine intake injectors are higher pounds. I think they're like, I want to say mid-20s as far as what they flow. And the factory ones with the spider injectors are around 19. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a possibility that this tune is for the marine intake. So this is something that we'll look at later. But now that that's out of the way, let's look at the final results of everything. So this is the results here from the second pull, and that's with the factory PCM that has the 0411 swap from Lextech. And just talking about modifications, the only thing done to my truck as far as the engine goes would be the long tube headers, the dual 2.5-inch exhaust. I do have straight through mufflers that could play a part. Absolutely. Then I have the cold air intake, which I don't think is doing much with my current setup, but who knows. And I also have the E-fan swap. Having these electric fans, once again, if you guys have watched the other video with me actually running a quarter mile, there was an improvement in power on the street and probably definitely on the dyno from the research that I did do. We're just taking that fan, the clutch fan, off and replacing it with an electric fan. That definitely frees up power as well. And just to throw it out there, yes, I do have the MSD box, but once again, for factory application, it's probably not helping me much now. I mainly use that for the two-step. So in short, again, long tube headers, 2.5-inch exhaust, straight through mufflers, electric fan swap, no clutch, and cold air intake. Also, of course, the 0411 PCM, but once again, that's just a factory express fan tune, or who knows, it just has that Lex Tech touch, but he's not a tuner, I will say. So next, we're going to consider the fact that this motor, once again, from the factory is about 260 horsepower, brand new, and that's at the flywheel. So we just achieved flywheel horsepower on a 230,000 mile engine. To me, I'm calling that a win. So on the screen now, what you see, this is the actual sheet that has the graph on it from the second run, which was the good run. And also one thing to consider as well that Dean did for me, he's pretty familiar when it comes to the power glides, turbo 400s, common things that are used when it comes to high horsepower applications. And with that being said, he gave me kind of ballpark numbers. He said when it comes to a 400, a turbo 400, you're probably looking at 25% loss as far as the ballpark. With 25% loss, it would equal about 336 horsepower at the crank. And then with something like maybe a power glide, doesn't eat up as much power. Let's just say that took 20% of the power before it got to the wheels. If that's the case, you're looking at about a 315 horsepower number at the crank. So long story short, man, this is great news because there's so many more mods to come that are not breaking the bank. I mean, once again, we still got the intake, the marine intake that still has to go on. We still have 1.6 roller rockers along with the beehive style springs that don't take as much force to actually go down, but they will restore some of that snap to the valve train. Other than that, I know I'm forgetting something, but it is what it is, man. But this has already been kind of a long video, a lot of information. For those of you that actually made it to the end, I really appreciate it. It means a lot. This is a really small channel. I don't get paid for this stuff at all. This is out of my own pocket and my own time because I wish that there was somebody there for me when it came to me wanting to do what I'm doing now and had videos or more data on what stuff like this would actually do. So I'm here trying to provide it for you guys, and I hope you appreciate it. But all right, guys, once again, I'm Rob Cole, and this is RCS Auto World. I'll see you all on the next one. Peace.